Welcome to Speak and Heal, a faith journey series, Healing After Divorce. My name is Father Danny. Our understanding of marriage will help greatly in healing after divorce. Understanding what goes into a marriage relationship will help in healing after divorce. I listened to a story of a lady who was in a marriage relationship for 30 years. After 30 years of a marital relationship, a marriage relationship coming to an end was a devastating experience for the lady. She carries shame, guilt, and pain. She still feels sinful before God. She feels the pain of being seen as a failure in a marriage relationship for 30 years that it comes to an end. She has not forgiven herself for going through divorce. Even when the husband applied for annulment, she resisted the annulment process. She was not for it, for she believed in what is taught in the Gospel of Mark, that whatever God has put together, no man should put asunder. She believed that the covenant of marriage is between the spouses and God, and therefore God was the center of it. She believed that their marriage was sanctioned by God, and therefore, if sanctioned by God, it must not and should never integrate. She came into a marriage relationship with such convictions from the faith that she understood. The faith she understood on her part. She came into that marriage relationship with such convictions, but on the other side, the husband was not of the same conviction. The husband, in the back of his mind, marriage was a social contract blessed by God. For the husband, it is not God who brings them together. For the husband, it was they who brought themselves together and invited God to bless their union. And according to him, when they came to learn later that he believed the presence of the priest was to bless their coming together. So it was a social contract blessed by God for them to live together. But it was never brought together by God, but God blessed them after coming together. Those who are two understandings of marriage which they never discussed before they entered into a marriage relationship. It was discovered later when the arguments started, when the man said, I believe marriage is a social contract. Depending on cultures where you come from, then you invite God to bless you to live a good marriage after that. While the wife believed it was sanctioned by God, a commitment made between the two and God, and in them they were to see the love of God. It is true, there is a teaching of the church of the sacredness of the marriage or the institution of marriage. Sacredness. It's a calling, it's a vocation we are called into. It's a teaching that has been there in ages, that we are called into the sacrament of marriage. It's a gift given to us. It's the most beautiful gift that is given to the couple. The gift of marriage, marital love, in which we see the love of God in their self-giving for each other. That's why many religions have invested in saving the marriage institution through marriage preparations, marriage counseling, marriage spiritual direction, and also support groups, marriage encounters, and other groups to keep the sanctity of the institution of marriage. But when we come into a marriage relationship with our own understanding of what marriage is, without ironing out any misunderstanding, because our faith about marriage may not be well informed and we may not be well formed in the marriage. First, we are not informed of what marriage is, we are not well informed, and we are not well formed in the marriage that we are embracing. And therefore we come into a married relationship with our own kind of understanding of what marriage is, by our own understanding of faith. Here the man is, it's a social contract, and we come to it, we ask God to bless us to live together, while the wife is saying it is sanctioned by God, and therefore we come to it and put everything to sustain it and to keep it. That's why she sacrificed and did the heavy lifting to keep the marriage for 30 years, and it ended in divorce. Sometimes we are partially formed about our marriage. We are not fully formed and informed. The church teaches about marriage in the Catholic Catechism or the Catechism of the Catholic Church, and there are several things that have to be achieved through the spouses coming together so that this marriage can be lasting marriage. One, it says, the church teaches in the Catechism of the Catholic Church that marriage is expected to help the spouses, one, to overcome self-absorption. These two came together, but one of them never overcame self-absorption. So it ought to help the spouses to overcome self-absorption. Number two, egoism. Number three, pursuit of one's own pleasure. Number four, open oneself to the other. Number five, have mutual aid. And number six, be open to total self-giving. Unless such is achieved in a marriage relationship, that marriage will not stand. And we have to take into account that the evil in man always threatens the institution and the sacredness of marriage. It threatens the relationship between man and woman. In the relationship of marriage, when the evil in us comes to fore, the union is always threatened when the evil comes to fore by discord. There comes a spirit of domination. One party wants to dominate the other. Not leading, but dominating, domination. Infidelity creeps in, and when I was listening to this lady, infidelity was the greatest thing that she was fighting in her marriage for 30 years. She kept on fighting infidelity for 30 years. Once in a while, infidelity will come in. So that evil in man allows infidelity to creep in. Jealousy. One is jealousy of the other party even without reason. Jealousy was one of the issues she was dealing with. The husband was extremely jealous of the wife and overprotective for no apparent reason. And conflicts, unnecessary conflicts that escalate in most cases to hatred and separation. And that's exactly what evil in man, evil in the human person can do to a marriage relationship. So first, unless the first 6 items are achieved through marriage, the marriage will not stand. And the 6 of them we said: overcoming self-absorption, egoism, pursuit of one's own pleasure, being open to the other party, mutual aid, and self-giving, total self-giving. And then watch against this evil in man coming to fore in terms of discord, spirit of domination, infidelity, jealousy, and conflicts that are unnecessary, that escalate to hatred and separation. Indeed, the bottom line is, when we come into a marriage relationship, we must be watchful against sin that makes marriage difficult and threatens permanency that is promised. Permanency in marriage is a promise we give. Sometimes we are over-promising when we come to marriage. We never even think of it. We say, in sickness, in poverty, in good and in bad, until death do us part. But do we ever think about what we are saying and how such can be achieved? We have to understand that man carries sin. Human person carries evil, and we have to be watchful against evil. So therefore, we have to come to marriage when we fully understand what we are looking for to achieve the 6 items that I've talked about, and to watch out against the 5 sinful evils that threaten marriages. Unless we are watchful against such, our marriages may not stand. Lifelong relationship. Mark 10:9 says, whatever God has put together, no one should separate. This makes people feel terrible, sinful, guilty, and ashamed when marriage comes to an end. Infidelity leads to a marriage that cannot be sustained. Jealousy, domination, conflicts, discord, all these threaten the institution of marriage. When we come to a married relationship, we must first learn to know exactly what we are entering into. Not our own concepts of what marriage is, but understand what exactly we are entering into. And when it comes to an end, we can still accept ourselves for who we are. For we know in heaven there will be no marriage. We shall enter the kingdom of God as single. You have to come to terms that the marriage has come to an end, and your marriage relationship must have been caused to come to an end by sin, by selfishness, by what we have just mentioned, and you have to be ready to live a holy life, for marriage is a calling. And there comes a time when that calling is not tenable. We accept that you lived in a marriage relationship. It was there, a marriage relationship. But you have to come to terms that now it has come to an end. Then I will leave you with this question. What is your understanding of marriage? And what is the teaching of the church about marriage? I will not wish to go further than that, but invite you to reflect and ask yourself, how much do you know what marriage is? And how that will help you to live a healthy marriage, and if it comes to an end, to understand why it has come to an end and start the healing process. When this lady understood what she was dealing with in her 3rd years of marriage relationship, now she understands as to why she was never fully happy and joyful in her marriage, but at all times she was doing heavy lifting to keep the marriage together. Are you doing heavy lifting? Do you understand what marriage is? Are you in sync with each other about marriage? And if you are divorced, what is your attitude about the divorce and your understanding about marriage? Are you ready to speak and heal? God bless you. Have a good evening.